Welcome to the Success Sculpting Show with Stephen Pierce, bringing you the right information right now to sculpt a more meaningful and memorable life of success. Join us each week to discover gems to help you grow your mental toughness, expand your will to win, and multiply your results. It's never been easier to learn what to do and how to do it to succeed at what you choose to do.
This is truly an experience you won't find anywhere else.
Now, here's your host, the Success Sculptor himself, Stephen Pierce.
Hey, this is Stephen Pierce, and I want to welcome you to episode number 9 of the Success Sculpting Show with yours truly, Stephen Pierce. And today, what we are going to be talking about is how to free your mind. And the approach that I'm going to take in doing this is the approach that after years of feeling mentally tormented, it seemed to really work for me. So I hope this angle will help you to understand how we can kind of get down mentally, what that ultimately means, and a surefire solution to it. But one thing I want you to understand before we get into the whole idea of freeing your mind is to understand how we go from conception to crisis. And what that means is, from our birth to whatever existing mental or emotional crisis we may experience in our life. So understand that what's natural is the power of our minds, and that's God's contribution to us. The power that our minds have is what God has contributed to us. Now, that's natural. Our nature is coded and sculpted by those around us in our infancy. So it's our guardian's contribution to us, be it our mom only, our dad only, or our mom and dad, or our grandparents, our brothers and sisters, whoever our primary guardians are. That is what becomes a part of our nature as we're growing up, and it becomes coded in us and is sculpted by those that are around us. So that's their contribution to us. Now, what we nurture is decided by us as well-minded adults. That, my friend, is our contribution to ourselves. So God has contributed to us this natural mental power. Our environments when we're growing up, our guardians, based on where they are, they contribute to us, are part of our nature, right? Because we're like a blank canvas when we're young. But as adults, what we decide to nurture is what we contribute to ourselves. Now, here's the thing. The greatest deception of who you think you are is preventing you from experiencing the greater discovery of who you really are. Now, let me say that again, because it's extremely powerful. And the moment I got this into my life, I really went into guerrilla warfare to free myself. So let me say that to you again. The greatest deception of who you think you are is preventing you from experiencing the greater discovery of who you really are. So understand this. A diamond is valuable. And for many women and guys, they may feel it's invaluable. But understand that a diamond isn't light. It only reflects light. So you see a diamond and it's like, wow, look at how the light is reflecting off of that. It lets you know it's a diamond. In fact, some people can tell a fake from an authentic diamond based on how it goes about reflecting the light, right? But understand the diamond isn't light itself. It will only reflect the light. So if darkness of lies is all around you, your life isn't going to reflect the light of truth about you. Think about that. If all you have are the darkness of lies around you, because see, here's the thing, you are a diamond, and a diamond is a diamond even when it's in the rough. A diamond can be buried in the depths of dirty soil. Its location does not change what it really is. So you're a diamond, whether you recognize it or not, whether you realize it or not, and whether people around you want to make you feel as if you're nothing but a bunch of dirty rocks, okay? But if the darkness of lies is all that you allow to have around you, your life isn't going to reflect the light of truth about you. So what we need to do is to eliminate those strongholds that we have in our mind, okay? There is an invisible attack, an invisible assault on your life that's causing you great mental warfare, okay, and emotional turmoil that we all tend to experience in our life. And with that said, chances are, and I know I discovered this in my life, and it may be true for you, chances are you are both affected and afflicted by the whispering words of witchcraft. The whispering words of witchcraft. Now, many people, when they think of witchcraft, they think of Harry Potter, which is real witchcraft, right? And they may think about getting these books and practicing witchcraft and pulling out pentagrams and all this other kind of stuff, which is witchcraft. But there are more subtle forms of witchcraft. People aren't walking around all the time in all black with hoods and throwing up Baphomet horn signs into pentagrams to exercise witchcraft. Understand that witchcraft is about control via spells. Now, verbal spells can consist of negative labels that people place on you or that you actually place on yourself. So I want you to think about it. How does one become spellbound? All right. A negative verbal spell is spoken over you. All right. And it is repeated by someone. And this is what I call casting the spell. They can say something negative to you or about you, and it's literally them casting a spell verbally. Now, it becomes your own internal incantation when you decide to capture and carry the spell by repeating it to yourself internally or repeating it outside, externally, verbally, out loud. All right. So a person can cast a spell on you, verbally saying something. I mean, believe it or not, it can be something that's as simple as you're a loser. Listen, that's a verbal spell. But what have you done with it? Have you bobbed, weaved, blocked? Or did you capture it? And are you now carrying that spell? Because it's become your own incantation. Now, if you want to know what an incantation is, you can just look it up in Wikipedia. But let me give you the short version. And it's summarized from Wikipedia that an incantation is a charm or a spell created using words. Okay, an incantation may take place during a ritual, either a hymn or a prayer, and it may invoke or praise a deity. In magic, occultism, and witchcraft, it's used with the intention of casting a spell on an object or a person. Now, if you want to get into the real history of incantations, there's some books out there that will let you know, and I don't know what your beliefs are, but I mean, the Book of Enoch, and of course, there could be great debate in the church about the Book of Enoch and all this other kind of stuff, but we can't deny that the Bible makes reference to Enoch, and there's probably no better place to have an understanding of Genesis 6 and the fallen angels and how they landed on Mount Hermon than the Book of Enoch. But the Book of Enoch, while it expands on what happened during the flood, before the flood, Noah, post-flood, and Joshua and the fallen angels, one thing that it talks about is how fallen angels taught men and women how to practice the dark arts of witchcraft via incantations. But we're not going to go down that path, okay? Just understand that incantations, and some people try to use them in a positive form, incantations are basically rooted in occultism and dark arts and witchcraft, all right? Now, you may think that, well, isn't an affirmation an incantation? Not really. To affirm is not necessarily to incant. Let me give you an example of how I would explain what the difference is. An affirmation is like hearing about how good a meal tastes. So your senses are disengaged. You know, you're hearing, but you're not fully engaged. You know, somebody's telling you about how good a meal is or telling you about how good a movie was, all right? Or how great of a book that is to read. An incantation is actually eating the meal. You are fully engaged. All of your senses are engaged. And here's how you know the difference. Somebody can say something to you incredibly negative and you believe it. And you believe it where you feel it literally vibrating at a cellular level in your Bible, in your body, sorry, versus you trying to affirm, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. Think about how intensely you feel as if you can't do something versus feeling as if you can do something, but you really don't believe that you can. So you're trying to affirm that you can. I can do it. I can do it. That's an affirmation. But an incantation and casting a spell is literally the amount of energy that is put into the words that are used. Are you following me? So it's very hard to overcome some type of verbal incantation or spell that's placed over you with some very lightweight affirmation. Okay, now many people are living their lives spellbound. They're living their lives under the spells and the controlling witchcraft of other people. Now understand that spellbound means to be entranced by, or as if by a spell, to be fascinated, right? To be fascinated. But what does fascination or to be fascinated mean? Well, if you look up the dictionary definition for fascinated, it means to attract and to hold attentively by a unique power, by personal charm, unusual nature, or some other special quality, to be enthralled by, to arouse the interest or curiosity of, to allure, to transfix or deprive of the power of resistance as through terror, like the sight of the snake fascinated the rabbit. Now I'm saying all that, but I'm really wanting to get to this point, and that's why I wanted to give you those various definitions of to be fascinated. Because when you're spellbound, meaning somebody casts a spell on you, you're spellbound, it means to be fascinated by it. But have you ever stopped to think about how fascinated, how enthralled, and how transfixed we can be on the negative words that are spoken to us or about us? People can tell you great things about yourself all day long. We don't tend to be fascinated or transfixed by that. We seem to be transfixed on the negative. Think about that. Many people go through their lives totally transfixed on the negative and giving full attention to the worst part of the past, the seemingly impossibilities of the present, and even make predictions of a powerless future that's filled with failure. Think about that. Now, what is it that is driving us to do that? Listen, my friends, this screams clearly that one is under the spell of negativity. Okay. And if you think about what drives those emotions, I'm pretty sure that it's going to come down to what somebody has said to you or how we interpreted a circumstance or an encounter or a situation in our lives. So understand that other people can cast spells on us with our permission, or we can cast spells on ourselves. And this kind of happens with what I call the broken halo effect. And there's three phases of the broken halo effect, all right? First, there's the invasion, all right? The invasion is like there's a crack in your halo. When I say halo, I'm not talking about, oh my gosh, you're perfect, you're an angel. I'm not talking about that, all right? What I'm just saying is it's that continuation of the best parts of us, the continuation of the proper ideas of ourselves. So let's look at it in that particular sense, all right? But the first thing that happens is there's this invasion. There's a crack in your halo that breaks inside you and it leads you into bondage. And this is generally from the lies that you were told about yourself, that you're told about your past, that you're told about your future, that you're told about your possibilities. Think about what happens when somebody says something to you negative. You can literally feel the crack in the breaking of your heart and your emotions. Let me tell you something. It's not just the breaking of your heart. It's the breaking of the halo. This continuous good image that you've had about yourself. All right. So that's the first thing that happens. There's this invasion. The second thing is there's this infiltration. Is one thing to be able to get in. There's another thing to be able to stay in. So when the break isn't immediately dealt with, then what happens is there's this total infiltration. That's where the words take root and create internal beachheads and strongholds in your life. This is when you validate what has been said. Listen, it doesn't matter on what grounds you validated. You validated it. I validated it. At that point in time, we have now given it a home. We have given it a place, and it builds this beachhead and this stronghold. The third thing is the institution. This is when we institutionalize it in our life. That's when the stronghold then strangles your true identity. Who you really are becomes lost. This is when our lives is now filtered through the lens of those lies. And that goes back to the point that I started off with here. The greatest deception of who you think you are is preventing you from experiencing the greatest discovery of who you really are. And it all begins with that broken halo. Okay, so with all this in mind, we can go really deep into all this, but with that in mind, how do we go about breaking the spell and freeing our minds? Well, the first thing is what I call the 5 first physical acts of going from spellbound to spell breaking. And let me tell you something, doing these 5 things, I can't even articulate to you what it did for me mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. It was amazing. And I challenge you to do these things. There are 5 physical things to do. And no, it doesn't include jumping jacks and squats and push-ups and all that other kind of stuff. Although that wouldn't hurt you, it doesn't include that. It includes deleting the emails that contain the negative spells. Got that email where a person says, "You freaking idiot," delete it. It means deleting the text messages that contains the verbal spells. Somebody send you a text message that said, "You're such a loser," delete it. It means deleting the voicemail messages. Because sometimes somebody can say something to you on voicemail and it makes you it breaks your heart, but it makes you so upset. You keep it as a reminder of what this person said to you. Well, guess what? You have now created a marriage and a bond with the spell. It's not hurting them, it's hurting you. Delete the voicemails. Throw away the letters or the cards that you may have where somebody says, "Hey, I just wanted to wish you a happy holiday and to remind you that you're still a loser." Are you following me here? Get rid of that stuff. And just as important, disconnect from the poisonous and toxic relationships. See, we can disconnect from the emails, the text messages, the voicemails, and the letters. But what we need to also do is disconnect from the relationships. I remember when I was doing a lot more personal coaching with people, and one of the things that I would constantly share, and I'm gonna share this with you here, is that I understand how hard it can be to let certain relationships go. And I paid a huge price knowing I should have let relationships go, and I didn't. And because it seemed like it was very difficult and it was complex at the time. But I want you to keep this one thing in mind. The pain of letting relationships go right now is no match for the hell that you will have to pay for keeping them longer than you should have. I learned that the hard way. Because what you're holding strong to can be the very thing that's making you weak. And that's not just relationships. You're holding strong to doubt, but it's weakening you. You're holding strong to fear, but it's weakening you. We hold strong to certain things, but yet those things are weakening us. And as a slight preview to this episode, in episode 8 at the end, remember I told you one of the reasons we're going to be talking about how to free your mind is because it's hard to get up when what you're grabbing is holding you down. I want you to think about how impossible it may be for you to get up and transform your life when you're holding on to relationships that are derailing your life. I hope you're getting this, okay? Because this right here comes from the bowels of the battlegrounds of my life. It may be hard to do with certain things, at least in the short term, but the long term, it is more than worth it. Remember that song, "If Loving You Is Wrong, I Don't Want to Be Right"? Well, you know what? That's not going to help us right now. It's kind of like a person that's in love with pornography and it's destroying their life and it's destroying their relationships. But in their mind, it's like, if this is wrong, I don't want to be right. Or their love of gambling. If this is wrong, I don't want to be right. Or shopping and overspending and blowing out budgets. If the budgets exist, if this is wrong, I don't want to be right. Or sexual addictions or addictions to video games or addictions to food. It's hard to get up when what you're grabbing is holding you down. We tend to dance with the negative instead of duel with the negative. We figure out, how do we get into sweet harmony with all these things that are tearing us down and pulling us down and disrupting and destroying and dismantling our lives and our relationships? Be it pornography or gambling or shopping or sex or video games or television or gossiping, or even our love relationships with negativity or pain. Because some of us have relationships with that kind of stuff. I know I used to have a relationship with it. Inside of all of those things is the DNA of destruction. Because they either contain the DNA or they are producers of the DNA in your life. And what I mean by the DNA of destruction is literally the D, the N, and the A, which is an acronym for doubt, negativity, and your attitude. There are certain things in your life that will breed doubt. Think about the relationships that get you to doubt what's possible for yourself. Think about the relationships that are nothing but breeding grounds for negativity. And when I say relationships, it doesn't just have to be interpersonal relationships with other people. It can be your relationship with television. It can be your relationship with food. It can be your relationship with anything, including people. Think about the things in your life that breed an attitude that is an adversary to what you want to accomplish, not an ally. An attitude that sabotages what it is you say you want to create and doesn't support what it is you say you want to create. There are certain things that we allow in our lives that are breeding grounds for the DNA of destruction, the doubt, the negativity, and the attitude. And it is our responsibility. Remember what I was talking about in the beginning of this episode, okay? I talked about the conception to the crisis. What's natural is our power of our minds. God gave that gift and contribution to us. We can't forever, as adults, blame the nature of our environments when we were growing up, how we were coded and how we were scripted and how we were sculpted by those around us in our infancy. I understand that has an influence and it has an impact, as those people contributed to us knowingly or unknowingly in bad, negative ways that had short-term and even longer-term effects, especially if there's lingering today. But there is no excuse as well-minded, mature adults to proactively decide to nurture that negativity. That right there is what we are contributing to ourselves. And we need to understand that we have a choice here. Okay, we have a choice. We had no choice in God deciding to give us the great contribution of the powers of our minds. We had no choice in our infancy for those adults and guardians around us to contribute to us what they contribute to our nature. But we as adults have a choice at what we are going to nurture in our minds on a day-to-day basis. So let me give you 5 things to remember to remain free from this verbal witchcraft. 1, don't harvest what people try to plant in your head if it's not a harvest you want. If you want watermelons or roses, don't accept the weeds. Okay? You don't have to say, well, that's just part of the garden. Right, but it doesn't mean it has to stay there. If somebody wants to give you negative things to think about, it is your choice. Listen, they have the right to say whatever it is they want to say, but you equally have a right to not allow it to matter to you or to impact you or to influence you. Don't harvest what people try to plant in your head if you don't like it and you don't want it, and it doesn't align with what you believe about yourself and what you believe is possible about today and tomorrow for you, for your family, for your future, for your legacy. That's your choice. The second thing is, don't let what you are distort who you are. Listen, right now, what may be happening may not be fully in line with who you would like to become. That is not the problem. The problem is when we allow what is going on and what is happening to distort who we really are at the nucleus and who we are striving to become. It is that distortion field where great failure happens because we tend to mix up what is happening with who we are, with what we're dealing with who we are, with what we're going through with whom we're becoming. Third thing, believing you can't isn't the real problem, is not believing you can. I want you to think about that. Believing you can't isn't the real problem here. The real problem is not believing that you can. Are you following me? Because see, if you believe you can't, but you more so believe you can, because any given moment you can have moments of doubt. That's okay. But if there's no can to counterpunch the doubt, that's where the problem comes in at. See, if you have a moment of doubt, or you have some moments where you just you don't believe you can, push through something, or something, oh my gosh, I can't lift another weight, or I can't run another step, or I can't lift another, whatever the case may be. You can have that moment of weakness because that can be real for you because, it's a part of your humanity to feel pain, to get exhausted, to be fatigued. But if you don't believe that you can, you don't have anything to counterbalance and to counterpunch and to counterattack the can't. So understand that believing you can't isn't the real problem. It's not believing you can. Moments of doubt. This is the fourth one. Moments of doubt aren't destructive. It's the momentum of doubt that's destructive. What does that mean? You can have any moment of doubting, but if the doubt remains there, a snapshot in time, that's it. It's a picture. It's a moment in time. It's past. That's completely different than the momentum of doubt, the doubt that has gone from being displaced to being in this place, the doubt that is being carried with you, that has become woven into the fibers of your life. It breathes with you. It is a part of your heartbeat. It's a part of the cells that are pumping through your blood. That's different. That is doubt that has momentum, that is now currently with you everywhere you go. That, my friend, is destructive. Not a moment of doubt, the momentum of doubt. And 5, falling in quicksand isn't the problem. It's not being able to get out, right? People that ever died because they fell in quicksand didn't die because they fell in the quicksand. They died because they couldn't get out of the quicksand. Basically, what that means is getting into trouble is not the problem. Having error is not the problem. Making mistakes is not the problem. Is when we do not correct error. Is when we don't learn from mistakes. Is when we don't get up when we fall down. That, my friend, becomes problematic. Remember the phrase, how the phrase like, I want to get ahead, like get ahead? Well, that's, to me, there's like a double meaning in I want to get ahead, or we can do this to get ahead. It really means get ahead. To get ahead, get a head that will harvest what's needed to move ahead. In other words, what's going on in your head, what's going on in your mind. Understand that every day is an act of mental bobbing and weaving and counterpunching. Every day, okay? That's for all of us. Just like to think a boxer can go in the ring is like, oh no, well, he's not gonna have to bob and weave and counter because he's the world champion. World champions, when they go in the ring, they don't have to bob and weave and counterpunch. No, they're world champions because they excel at bobbing, weaving, and counterpunching. Are you following me? They're not immune to it. They don't get a bypass of that because they're world champions. No, they are world champions because they learned how to bob. They learned how to weave. They learned how to counterpunch. So let me leave you with this one thing as we wrap up episode number 9. I said rapisode. That was mean I was trying to say rap and episode simultaneously. So as we rapisode, I should probably say that rapisode means we're wrapping up the episode. Anyway, as we wrap up episode 9, let me leave you with something that is pretty fitting for the whole idea of boxing. All right. And every boxer knows this when they enter the ring. And I want you to keep this as a reminder of your daily mental warfare. Every boxer knows this. They know they need to know how to bob. They need to know how to weave. They need to know how to counterpunch. But remember this, protect yourself at all times. I want to thank you very much for listening to episode number 9 of the Success Sculpting Show. And I hope to see you on the next episode. Tell your friends, talk back to me here on the Success Sculpting Show blog. Give me a call and leave me some voicemails. Let me know how this episode of Freeing Your Mind has helped you to free your mind. Let your friends and your family and your associates know so we can help them to free their minds. And I'll see you on the next episode of the Success Sculpting Show with yours truly.
Thanks for listening to the Success Sculpting Show with Stephen Pierce.
If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address.
SuccessSculptingShow.com to your friends and colleagues. Be sure to check out our archives of previous podcasts and check the schedule to join us for our next live streaming Success Sculpting Show webcast. This has been a Success Sculpting Incorporated production. Join us next time for another edition of the Success Sculpting Show with Stephen Pierce, and tell your friends.